Straight to pressing issues now. No fewer than 2 persons have been allegedly killed after a group of Yoruba Nation agitators clashed with men of the Lagos State Police Command around the Gani Fawehinmi Park in the Ojota area of the state. It will be recalled that the police allegedly shot a salesgirl, Jumoke Oyeleke, to death while dispersing the Yoruba Nation protesters at the same park on July 3, 2021. And of course, reacting to the incident, one of the leaders of the Yoruba Self-Determination Group, Professor Banji Akintoye, said 2 people lost their lives. Now, to discuss this development further with us is the PPRO of the Lagos State Police Command, Benjamin Hundeyin. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Hundeyin.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. But I must say, the line is not clear. I can't hear you well.
Okay. Is it better now, or is it the same?
It's better now.
All right, good. So tell us, bring us up to speed on what happened yesterday. We know that there have been different stories as regards what caused the crisis that happened yesterday at Ojota, but would like to hear from you. What is the source of that particular incident?
Well, the situation has been brought under control. The 4 people that were arrested have been brought to the headquarters. Investigation has commenced. And the 2 police officers that were shot at are responding well to treatment. And to ensure that such does not happen again, we have rejigged our deployment of human and operational resources all over Lagos State. So we are assuring Lagosians that they can move around without fear of harassment or intimidation.
Okay, let me ask quickly. The report is that this Yoruba agitation group, converged at that venue as at 3 a.m. Was it that the policemen were not aware, or they just didn't mobilize on time to the venue to ensure that law and order wasn't broken?
Well, I can't hear you well, but let me assume I got you well. So they did not inform the police that they were going to come out to do any rally.
Okay.
It's not like it's compulsory for them to, but it's always advisable that you do that so that we can make sure there is adequate security. But in this particular instance, they did not inform the police, and not only did they not inform the police, they were bearing arms, which is totally wrong, and that was why we had to come in.
So are you saying that there were no intelligence information as regards the fact, because we know that most times when protests, rallies, or whatever developments are happening in a state, the police is usually informed, especially when it comes to getting intelligence information?
I'm confirming to you that they did not inform the police.
I'm not asking if they informed you now. I'm asking if you got wind of the information before it happened.
Well, you know our usual practice. When we know that some people will be coming out to foment trouble, we even deploy people out there even before their arrival. So for you not to have seen anybody out there before the people came out, we were not aware that they will be coming out.
But how do you explain the fact that most times when rallies and protests happen, we hear of the police dispersing them with tear gas? And is that the particular modus operandi? Is that how things should be done whenever a peaceful protest is going on?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. The line wasn't clear.
Yeah, so most times when we hear of rallies and protests, especially peaceful protests, what usually happens is that we hear that armed men or policemen go to the areas to disperse the crowd with tear gas, and sometimes it gets awry and then people get killed. Is that supposed to be the modus operandi, or is there something wrong, especially when it comes to the method of dispersing the crowd?
Well, for every peaceful protest, we do not interfere, as long as it's peaceful. But in this particular case, these men were bearing arms and were causing panic in the society, so we have to step in.
Okay. You said earlier that you had to rejig, the deployment of troops and.
Pardon? Say that again.
You said earlier that you had to rejig, the system in terms of deployment of troops and operational equipment after yesterday's incident. Are you assuring Lagosians that every part of the state would have your, policemen right there on the streets just to ensure that there's calm?
Definitely, that's what we're saying. We're giving the assurance that not just Ojota, every part of the state, we're doing all we can, everything possible to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order.
All right, thank you so much. It's good to have that assurance, especially coming from you, because a lot of people have been agitated after that incident happened in Ojota, especially as the elections approach. Thank you so much, Benjamin Hundeyi, first PPRO, Lagos State Police Commander. Have a good day.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we will be discussing this further, but of course from a different perspective. Don't go away. And to further discuss the imbroglio that happened at Ojota yesterday, we have joining us Matthew Oluku, a public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you on the show. Now, you heard the first PPRO of the Lagos State Police Command earlier talking about the fact that they were not informed and they didn't get any intel as regards what happened at Ojota yesterday. How did that come to you?
Once again, thank you for having me. I think it's quite unfortunate that the police will say they didn't get information as to how it all started. It's good enough to say they were not informed and they will not take any blame. But to say you didn't get intelligence, I think there's something fundamentally wrong. Because it's not just the police, you have the DSS that is saddled with intelligence gathering locally. You have the National Intelligence Agency that is saddled with intelligence gathering in diaspora. And you have the police. Not just the police, you have the arm of police that deals with intelligence. So if you have all these agencies of government, you are telling me that they cannot synergize to get wind of an impending public disturbance, if I may choose to go with his own perspective. I think there's something fundamentally wrong.
Looking at the defense of the police force, that they didn't even get a wind of it, how possible is that? I know you've just said that it shows that something is fundamentally wrong if all of these sister agencies can't even get a wind of it. But 3 a.m. that's when this group allegedly gathered at that venue. We're not talking about 4 or 5 people. We're talking about tens of people, if not hundreds. Now at 3 a.m., virtually everyone is, at their homes. Those who are meant to be on the streets are your police force or your RRS, which is still an arm of the police force. So are they saying that from wherever they came from, they just didn't appear at Ojota, they probably converged, came from different parts. None of the police force or units that were meant to patrol the streets of Lagos, none of them got a wind of people, in their droves trying to converge there. It looks ridiculous. So do you think this is more of a cover-up by the police in terms of shifting blames, or they truly just didn't get a wind of it somehow?
It's either the police is being economical with the truth, because it's difficult to believe that they didn't get intelligence about it, because it's not just possible for a place like Lagos State for people to gather in their numbers by 3 a.m. and you say you are not getting any intelligence about it. I think the police may not be telling us the truth. The way it stands, if you are looking at an environment that is perhaps in the rural area, it's understandable. Not a place like Ojota, a place like Lagos State, that have beef of activities, and though I understand is maybe perhaps they started gathering around 3 a.m. But that's odd hour. I think the police is the one that man the security of every nook and cranny of the society.
Yes.
And they take they take authority of all the streets at that odd hour. So if you are telling us that people will gather by 3 a.m. in their numbers and the government, the police is not aware, it means somebody somewhere can invade Lagos State and overrun Lagos State without the police confronting them.
You know, I
So
asked,
it means we are in for a serious danger.
I asked Benjamin Hunde the same question, that is it their modus operandi? Because we've seen it happen several times. For instance, in July 3, 2021, they killed a lady. She was allegedly shot, Jumoke Oyeleke, while dispersing the Yoruba nation. This same thing happened during the NSAS protests. We saw how a lot of people, you know, lost their lives just because they were protesting peacefully. And I asked him the same question. Is it their modus operandi to just, you know, shoot in the air, you know, fire tear gas? How should things be done in a civil society?
To be quite honest with you, I think that is the reason he was quick to say they were bearing arms, to justify the approach of quelling it. But in a civilized society, I think there are so many areas, so many civilized approach of quelling protests. One, you can use, I think tear gas should even be the last resort. You can use water cannon.
Yes.
You can use pepper spray. If it becomes violent, you can use tear gas. But it's unlikely that you start seeing police in a civilized society using firearm to disperse protesters. But the way it stands, the police have come out to say that the protesters were bearing arms. So to that extent, it's difficult to start arguing whether the police was wrong in responding with arm in order to disperse them.
But I'm even looking at the past trends, that this isn't the first time.
No, the one that happened
previously,
the issue of the girl that was shot at Ojota the other time, I think by all purpose and intent, the police, that was purely an extrajudicial killing. And everybody condemned it. There is no justification behind the modus operandi through which they quelled or they started shooting sporadically. And to be quite honest with you, I think it has become a usual practice of Nigerian police. Not that it's the best standard world over, but unfortunately, I think it has become a norm in Nigerian
even to
system.
check people while driving. Look at the case of the barrister who was shot on Christmas
It's quite unfortunate, because you have a situation where the lady was shocked even without provocation on the part of the police. And as we speak, though the police authority have said the man has been suspended, but I think we needed to know more about it.
Exactly.
Because for me, what I know about ordinary trial is, if you organize an ordinary trial, you come up with a report. But the way it stands, if you look at the statement that came from the IG's office, that the man is under suspension, pending further briefing on the case. But now, by now, I think they should have concluded the ordinary trial. If it is dismissal, if it is perhaps suspension, and if that is a result of the ordinary trial, then you now hand over to the police for prosecution. Understand that with the advice of the Department of Public Prosecution from Lagos State before they know the next line of action. But for me, I think Nigerian police, they should be wary of the way they handle Nigerians. But again, I think the reason we are not seeing all this is stopping is because government on its part do not do the right thing. Because by the time you see police personnel killing Nigerians extrajudicially, and they are not being tried, they are not being
no consequences.
Yes, they are not being tried. It will burden other police personnel to do the same thing. I can remember some instances where Amnesty International will indict Nigerian police, perhaps Nigerian Army or DSS as the case may be. Instead of the authorities doing the right thing, they will target Amnesty International, a partisan organization. And these things are not helping issues. I think the government should rise up to its responsibility. Whether we like it or not, it behoves on the government to protect life and property. The Constitution is unambiguous about it, that the welfare of Nigerians and their security shall be the primary purpose of governance.
Well, let's look at this now, because this brings, you know, to the issue, police reforms, how they handle protest and all of that. We know quite well that within the police force, there's the riot police, that unit that handles riots. Why do we have, you know, policemen with firearms attending to protesters? Why not, you know, that particular unit? That's what the question some people are asking. But here's the thing, for various forms of protest that we've seen in recent times, why should there be the use of lethal force when handling these protesters? I mean, we had NSAS, which she mentioned earlier. It wasn't violent, you know, in that sense. It was all about music, dance, food, you know, the jamboree, but we knew how that ended. Now, this is another form of protest that has ended, you know, with 1 or 2 deaths, you know, reported. How do you think the policemen should be able to handle protesters and peaceful protests going forward?
Okay, one, I think there should be a reorientation. There should be an attitudinal change on the part of the police personnel. Some people have argued that the reason we see Nigerian police personnel operate with this brute force is because the way they inherited policing from our colonial masters. It was a kind of coercive force. It was a kind of a force trying to compel people because they were coming to Nigeria to exploit us. And when they handed over that policing to Nigerian authorities after independence, I think there was no proper training to change that mentality that you are policing the people, you are not fighting the people. Where it stands today, I think one, there should be proper reorientation of the police personnel. Most of them are not adequately educated, unfortunately. Some of them have good knowledge of the right thing to do, but I think most of them who are in the field, who are the lower cadre, who have interface with the public, most of them are not adequately educated and are not informed. And often than none, they are not sanctioned when they do the wrong, when they do wrong thing, and that has made them to continue doing the wrong. So for me, I think they should have reorientation, training, and retraining. And again, I think like I just earlier said, the major reason we are not seeing them stopping all this attitude is because they do not sanction them when they do wrong. Let me quickly digress a little bit, if you permit me.
That's fine.
Look at what transpired in Taraba State the other time, where an IG special squad went to arrest a kidnapping pen. They were killed, those policemen were killed under the supervision of a Nigerian military captain. And as we speak, the former chief of defense staff set up a panel of inquiry under the directive of Mr. President to unravel what actually transpired. A captain was indicted and 9 other soldiers, along with 9 other soldiers. But as we speak, as at the last count, we are able to understand that the Attorney General of the Federation took over the case, charged the matter to court. And the captain and the other soldiers were not charged to court along the other corporates, with an excuse that the military high command refused to surrender those military personnel for prosecution. One now begin to ask, as Attorney General of the Federation, who has unfettered access to Mr. President, who even wrote memo that saw the Almighty Magu removed from office, cannot go to Mr. President or write memo to Mr. President to complain that the military command refused to surrender those who have been indicted for prosecution and not pronouncing them guilty. But I think justice, the writing demands that they should have been prosecuted. I don't think there's any indication that they're under prosecution. What I'm trying to say by buttressing this is, when you do not address wrongdoing, it will lead to other things. It will embolden other security agencies to do the same thing.
But let's look at this main agitation of the Yoruba nation. What do we know about these demands or these agitations? Because this isn't the first time. We've had it in 2021, had it in 2020, and now in 2023. What exactly is
that would take my attention away from the police. Let me take it to the political angle. Because whether we like it or not, as citizens, we have right of peaceful protest. One, we have right of self-determination. Nigerian government is a signatory to a UN charter that talks about self-determination. So long as you do it within the ambits of the law. But let me quickly say that the reason we are seeing sustainable agitation is because the political class, the government, have refused to address it.
There's nothing wrong. The issue that is.
There's nothing wrong in when we saw agitation from the southwest, especially Sunday Igboho. There was nothing wrong with federal government and state government engaging him. And we all knew what gave how Sunday Igboho came to relevance. when we had the issue of Sarika Beganga,
Yes.
who he gave quick notice and made good his threat and evicted him. We all knew the issue of Ibarapa North area of Oyo State, how it was alleged that Fulani held sway in those areas and they were terrorizing people. And the federal government that had the mandate to protect life and property through the police have all that while refused to do the needful. There was a vacuum. Somebody was stepping. People embraced him. And the federal government saw him as a threat. At the dead of the night, DSS invaded his residence. We all read on it based on newspaper what transpired. So what I'm trying to say in essence is the federal government needed to engage the agitators as and when due to know their concern, to address their concern. And once it's addressed, I don't think they would have gone further to start agitating.
So you're saying as we speak, we don't know what their agitations are about?
No, they are saying they want their own republic, Oduduwa nation.
But isn't that tending towards secession?
Even if you say it's tending towards secession, you engage them. You have conversation with them. You discuss with them. You have conversation. And at the end of the day, if you have a superior argument, you made a serious reason why they should drop the agitation. It is when you explore all the necessary avenues. And as long as they are doing it within the ambits of the law, no matter how long it tarries, you have no right to start hounding, intimidating, arresting, and perhaps killing
So the gap
them.
is the lack of communication between the government of the
The government is not ready to have conversation and negotiation with any agitator. That's why I see it.
Talking about, the government not being ready to discuss with them when it comes to issues of secession and all, don't you think it's from that mindset or that, oath of one indivisible nation under God, that mantra that we are united, we are one people, one nation, we can't break apart? Don't you think that's where the federal government is coming from?
To be quite honest with you, there is nothing sacrosanct about Nigeria.
Okay.
By providence, God is God that created the whole universe. By providence, there are some unifying factors. You have culture, you have tradition, you have language. It is not man's creation. But that is not to say that if you have different culture, you are from different cultural background, have different language, that you cannot cohabit, you cannot coexist.
Yes.
But it has to be through unanimous agreement. Not somebody coercing you through the barrel of gun.
But we've
I'm not
all
saying
together as one.
Exactly. There was
I'm not saying Nigeria should disintegrate. What I'm saying is, if people feel not satisfied with the marriage and they raise issues, address it.
Because we've had agitation from IPOP too.
Yes. Not is still they are still agitating. Not we had. The agitation is on. It's still on.
Yes, but I'm saying there was a time when it was really heated. Right now it's not as heated as it used to be.
Of course. But you cannot deny the fact that the agitation is still on.
Still there,
and you cannot deny the fact that even Southeast is seriously in crisis. Because if you are thinking of going to the Southeast, I think you have to think twice. Because of the level of
the sit-at-home is still on.
Of course, though currently I don't think is as we speak the sit-at-home.
It's still on.
As far as concerned, the issue order for sit-at-home. And whether you like it or not, you may call them non-state actors, but they have a way of making the people to comply with their directive. And if you have a situation where there's a civil disobedience against the government, the people tend to listen to what you call non-state actors than the government itself. There's a problem. And if you look at it, the government was supposed to have monopoly of coercive power.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the government is sharing that monopoly of coercive power with some non-state actors. And that best explains the reason you see, even like in the north, you see people paying tax to bandits. You see an emir turbining a terrorist.
Yeah. That would then take us back to history. I mean, if the federal government is not willing to engage these, secessionists or agitators now of secession, don't you think we're looking at deja vu going back to the Nigerian Civil War and how that started? I'm saying that because it looks like the federal government probably hasn't learnt its lessons from that civil war in terms of engaging, although that those would also tell you that the demands at the time from the Ojukwu-led Eastern region was probably too ambiguous for the federal government to yield to. So what do you make of these, agitators from the Yoruba land to IPOB? At least those are two distinct regions within the states, and it looks like they're still making the same calls over 30 years ago made by the
issue is federal government cannot continue grandstanding. The federal government must engage not just the Yoruba nation, not just the IPOB or the Biafra agitators. In fact, any concerned federal government should be ready to engage them.
Okay.
Because whether I would like it or not, this is an ideology. And when it comes to ideology, at times people are not bothered whether they are being killed. It gets to a point where people are ready to stake their life. I think we're already seeing that in the Southeast. And once you get to that level, it's a very difficult situation. So that is why the federal government should, as a matter of urgency, start engaging. We had confab. Yeah. And to a large extent, that confab was supposed to address most of all the root of all this agitation.
2014.
But for reason best known to this government, they didn't give that attention. Thank God this government is winding down. They're in the twin light of their.
All right. We have to take a break now before you continue. But of course, you're still here with us. We'll continue conversation after this break. Please don't go anywhere. All right, still discussing the agitation that happened in Ojota yesterday, where 2 people were feared killed. And of course, we still have with us Matthew Oluku discussing or analyzing this issue. Now, let's wrap it up by looking at the forthcoming elections, these agitations, the fact that the police were not able to manage it well. What do you see in the coming days, especially as we prepare for the elections? 42 days to the elections now.
I think this is one isolated issue. I don't think it's sufficient to affect security of the environment when it comes to do with the election.
But did you see the report of INEC saying that with all of the ongoings that
that's why I'm looking, this one that happened in the Southwest. I'm looking at it as an isolated issue in Southwest as a region.
Okay.
But if you look at the Southeast as a region, I think there should be need for apprehension. Because whether I would like it or not, there is already fear instilled in the mind of the electorate in the Southeast. Most people might not come out to exercise their franchise because of fear of the unknown. And you cannot blame them because, like I said earlier on the other time, that if you have a situation where the government do not have monopoly of coercive power, the consequence is what we are seeing. Because if some people can issue threats and make good their threats, and lives will be lost, I think next time they issue such threat, people will be wary of it. If government is saying, come out to exercise your franchise, you are protected, and they come out and government is able to protect them, I think next time, if government speaks, people will listen. But if government speaks and you see another group of people who government may regard as non-state actors, given a counter directive, and they're able to make good their threats, I think it calls for thing of concern. But again, I think the government have to move in quickly to assure the citizens, especially in the southeastern part of the country, that they will be protected when they come out to exercise their franchise. Otherwise, we are going to register serious voter apathy as a result of that threat.
Although we've heard from the police force PPRO, Benjamin Odeyin, saying that they've restored peace and order, and that not just in the Ojota, every part of the state is now safe. And we hope that that would be reciprocal or reflected in other states of the country.
Like I said, you cannot say that of the Southeast. Because from what we see, from what we hear, from what we read, the police, the army, the DSS are not 100% in control of all the space. I think, like you can see in the north, there are so many ungoverned spaces. And in the southeast, there is a fear of the unknown gunmen. I may not be in a position to determine who is the unknown gunmen, but there's a fear of the unknown gunmen. And whether we like it or not, that have instilled fear in the mind of the people in that part of the country. And the government that have the mandate to protect life and property should move in quickly to build the confidence of the people that they should participate in the electoral process, that their life will be secured.
Okay. All right. Let's switch quickly to our next focus.
Maybe we should take a break, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back to discuss another issue. Please stay with us.